Great to see you all here, and it's especially exciting to me to be at the Billy Wilder Theater because the first movie that I ever saw in a movie theater was Some Like It Hot. I think my parents couldn't get a babysitter that night, but I remember loving it, and, you know, it obviously influenced me for the rest of my life. So it's a... all right, well, we'll be here for a Q&A after, and I also want to thank Alexis for being here with me tonight. Alexis was an inspiration for me in making this movie, along with Lady Bunny and the Wigstock Festival, which I had attended and enjoyed. But my friendship with Alexis really ignited the making of the movie, and I'm thrilled to be here with her tonight. All right, see you after. Enjoy.
So 20 years, incredible. When was the last time you guys saw this?
I saw it about 6 months ago. Yeah,
okay.
On videotape, yeah.
On VHS?
Yeah, VHS.
Nice.
No.
No? Oh.
No, on a DVD. Is that what you call them, you children nowadays?
I've seen bits and pieces over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this was the first time on a big screen in a minute.
Time. Mm-hmm, but it held up pretty well.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Totally, and seeing it on film, bring back lots of memories.
I want to thank Richard Glatzer, who some of you may know in this room. And he really, he was in my apartment in Santa Monica one day and saw this print sitting in my closet. And this was like some print that I grabbed, like, you know, before it disappeared forever. It was like maybe had a few more color corrections. And he says, Barry, you shouldn't have that in your closet. That's going to be destroyed. So we have him to thank for preserving this print.
That's very
and
special.
Having this evening.
I'm glad that we have it. So you were saying in your intro about how the film was basically inspired by your friendship with Alexis. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, I just was like, somebody needs to film this, Barry. I mean, you got to. And, you know, knowing he was such a great filmmaker and producer and director, I thought, you know, it's going on a shoestring budget, but I've got to shoot something. And, you know, not just a home video.
Well, I had attended the Wigstock Festival for a number of years, so, you know, I had enjoyed it and seen what a spectacle it was. But, you know, getting the money together and getting the production off the ground is another story. But my friendship with Alexis dates back to about
1989.
I visited you on the set of Last Exit to Brooklyn.
You sure did. My first job. I was
and that's when we
chicken.
started, hanging out in New York after that movie. That's if you haven't seen that, that's an amazing performance Alexis gives on that film. But, you know, it was like...
But a lot of stars came out of Wigstock. I mean, RuPaul was already a big star, you know, by the time...
RuPaul was breaking out at this point, had a hit single.
Right, sure.
Yeah. But still was very much a part of this particular group. RuPaul and Lady Bunny. And
D-Light was amazing that, you know,
they were roommates in Atlanta, Georgia, before they moved up
RuPaul and Lady Bunny,
New York City. So... There was a big Atlanta contingent in this group.
And this is sort of the moment where Wigstock itself is sort of taking off in a way that it hadn't before, right? Like it had to change locations because it was getting so popular around this time.
Yeah, that's
right?
why it moved to the west side. It just got too big for Tompkins Square Park.
Hence the fuck you orchestra and all the complaints. That's where that had come from.
Oh, because of it was people.
Because for years, people, you know, all these. I mean, it's East Village, but you'd think that they'd be a little more open to it, but...
Well, it's interesting. I filmed a scene where Lady Bunny went before a city council meeting or something where, you know, because they were trying to restrict the festival or cut its hours down or whatever. And it was just so fascinating because, of course, she came as Lady Bunny, wig and all, and in this kind of courtroom. But I was encouraged because we, at some point, Samuel Goldwyn got on board, and we knew it was going to be a theatrical distribution.
You
And
knew
they
that when
were
you were
like,
shooting it.
cut back on the history, cut back on the politics. Don't, I was like, oh, well, let's show the behind the scenes and how did it get to be the, and they were like, no, make it a musical.
I see.
So there were two different movies there could have been made, but I understood that, and I went with trying to use the songs to tell the story and find, the sound bites that moved that forward. And
You still managed to put some politics in there.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
it was, people were dying left and right, so it was, we were surrounded. I mean that's what made Wigstock what it was. People were depressed, basically, going to funerals. Joey Arias said it, and a number of people say it, and it's like people just wanted a party, in between the funerals. Yeah. So that's the subtext of this film. Also, I had seen Paris is Burning and thought that it was a fascinating film, and then I got to know Jenny, the filmmaker. But I wanted to kind of show another picture of drag, or I think that's an incredible film. I know there's some controversies around it, etc.
Of course.
But basically, one of the most important characters ends up dead and murdered because she's, a sex worker. And I was like, God, I know so many people that are having the time of their life in drag, having such a good time and running nightclubs and parties such as what you were doing at that era, and I just thought, I want to show that side of drag. It's not all depressing and people don't end up on the piers dead,
Right. Well, they still do.
They still do, yeah.
But let's have some fun too. Let's not
Exactly.
forget why.
You were running parties at the time, Alexis? Is that what you're?
I just always sort of kicked around in nightclubs in LA and New York, and
You were
made
living
my
in New
way.
York in this time,
I
though.
moved to New York eventually to try my acting there, which was fine. I was there for 3 years, but I couldn't do those winters. I had to come back to Los Angeles, my hometown. But so my family's all here. So, but then that scrappy sort of little nightclub feeling that you get in the East Village and in parts of downtown LA and in parts of Hollywood, you sort of felt that in the daytime at Wigstock. It's just like there were some really, obviously put together queens, that really spent a lot of time, just like Halloween, putting their looks together. And then there's, people with hay on their head, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a whole spectrum, like you're saying. It's like all of the different kinds of drag that had been represented.
And also there was this
necessarily.
feeling of not just for gays, really everybody put on something festive and have a good time, and in a different way that Mardi Gras is that way too, but really more inclusive, and not the same way that Folsom Street is more geared towards the sexual side or the fetishy stuff, and it's not specific, so anybody can go for anything there, and it can be difficult to get any stage time. And for years it was you saw Jackie Beat scrapping for a minute.
Yeah.
1 minute
Yeah.
she got.
1 minute.
Well, I met up with some resistance because I was friends with Alexis and Jackie, and I knew that I could trust them. They're great improvisational actors, comedians. I knew that we would be able to create a storyline, a through line. The visitors from LA come to Wigstock. But Bunny was like, we don't have enough drag queens here. You got to bring them from LA. But I'm happy to report they all ended up the best.
The East Coast, West Coast
Rivalry.
feud. It was as bad as Tupac and Biggie. It really was.
But Bunny was always, cutting the minutes in half. She had to I'll give this one 30 seconds and this one. Otherwise, it would go on all night.
Unless you had a bump of coke for her, then you should give another 5 minutes.
That was The barter
Or
system.
introduce you to a straight
I wish-
Puerto Rican kid.
I wish she could have been here with us tonight. She was invited, but this is a big time for a lot of performers who perform in drag.
Jackie couldn't be here because
Early, Jackie Beat has got a show tonight.
Right.
Bunny has a
Crosstown.
show in New York. It's the early Christmas season.
And-
Drag queens work.
Hanukkah's big with the drag. I do a lot of bar mitzvahs.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah. Now, let me make sure that they got that right with the circumcision. Oh, come here. Let me see your shmegegi. Do you know what a shmegegi is? That is the Yiddish term for the leftover skin after.
Oh, wow.
Some mothers like to dry them out and wear them in lockets. I think my mother kept my umbilical cord, so it's the same sort of feeling. The shmegegi.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
Napoleon,
enlightening us.
Josephine, Napoleon's wife, Josephine kept as a part of him after he died in
Really?
a locket. Oh yeah,
The shmegegi?
Well, I think it was.
She
He
had
didn't.
that?
He wasn't. It was
was-
probably his foreskin.
Wow. Okay,
But he still
so
had it. You know, he was. This is not dinner conversation or after.
Why don't you
screening.
guys? Why
That's
don't you
another
guys
movie.
Tell us a little bit about the life of the film. Let's go back 20 years ago.
Okay.
And let's think. Let's talk about how the film was received at the time. What you guys were telling me that you had traveled with it a little bit, doing the festival circuit and stuff. What happened? Because I didn't realize that Samuel Goldwyn got on board when you were shooting.
Yeah, they got.
That's
I mean,
sort
it
of
was
an
it was a
unusual-
long haul, as
Yeah.
all films are for those out in the audience making films. But it started with an executive producer and her husband, the Rips. She now goes by the name Susan Shapiro, and they wanted to maybe finance a low budget, couple $100,000 narrative film. And I was like, well, you need a really perfect script to shoot $200,000 and make it. This was before everyone was doing it, with their handy cam.
We had to pay for actual film.
Yeah. You had to pay for actual film. But also I had made a few features before this, so I was like, all right, I'd like to try, and I just got to think, this is there's so much production value. It's there. There's so much. I mean, that's why the credits are like the credits for Gone with the Wind. I mean, we had so many people working on music and costumes and hair and makeup. And, so I started out with short of $200,000. And I decided, with the advice of Michael Barrow, who was my cinematographer during year one, and he had worked a lot in music videos. He said, Barry, we got to get a crane, And then, oh, by the way, I want to introduce two co-producers that are here. Is David Sweeney and Tom Parziale. Hello, please stand up.
Don't embarrass yourself. No, do it.
And where's Tom?
Say hi to David.
Is Tom here too?
Tom? To Tom Megan.
Anyway, I thought of you because, it was David was helping me raise money. We were always trying to raise
That's
just
right.
enough to shoot.
And we had a good time in Paris.
Yeah.
We traveled, and the show did the festival circuit, and I would perform at different, in Germany and all over the place. And
We did the Berlin Film Festival. Alexis came with me. We did a lot of gay film festivals as well. And in Rome, they put us up at a little
a little pensione nearby the Vatican, and
when the
well, we
owner
checked in as two males, and that was a little bit. And then when I came done up to go to the event, we were asked to leave the hotel.
basically asked to leave, and I was in shock. I mean, we were booked
So we packed
into
our
this
shit.
hotel by the Gay Film Festival of Rome.
Were there
you
other
know?
filmmakers from the festival staying there?
Possibly,
I
yeah.
believe so, but
got-
this shocked the guy. Alexis shocked the guy, and so we decided to. We had to move to another hotel, but there was no time, so we showed up at the theater
It had
with our
nothing
luggage.
to do with him catching me with his son.
Oh no, that didn't happen.
Nothing to do with it.
But we decided to milk it for all the publicity we could get, and we ended up on the front page of the newspaper in Rome. It said,
Nice.
"Not good enough for the hotel. No, good enough for the theater, but not the hotel."
Excellent.
Yeah, you know. And then we
Harnessed
did
it.
a big photo spread in some gay magazine.
I had a
Going
stroke.
back
I don't
to the-
remember any of this. And
Yeah,
I
you don't
love to
remember any of this? I dragged
Oh.
you all around. Alexis, we got to do it.
How fun.
But
With the internet,
it's nice
can't
to
we find
rabble rouse in
old
another.
magazines
Oh,
and
yeah.
newspapers? Can't we find them on the internet? Is there any hope for the internet?
Probably.
Is there any
Yeah.
research in this world other than?
But I just want to go back to your question in a little bit about how it got made. So it started out with some, an independent financier who got me to the first year with a crane and 4 cameras and a crew and
Wow, yeah.
a bunch of film. And before you know it, there was no money left out of 200,000, And but I had a lot of great footage, and I started editing on my own in those days on a reel-to-reel tape thing.
And there must be hours and hours of outtakes. Or do they
Hours.
exist?
Oh, they do. Many exist. Many interesting
where do they
things.
live?
One of the saddest things that I had to cut was Jane County, formerly Wayne County, who, and she sang a song she became famous for called "If You Don't Want to Fuck Me, Then Baby Fuck Off." But meanwhile, she's very punk and kind of gross about her.
And what was the reasoning behind that? Was
At that point, we had Samuel Goldwyn on board, and I had like 5 producers, and
too many fucks in the
it
movie?
was just too. It was like going to get an X rating just because of her.
Wow.
And I had choices. I fought for Lee Bowery. It's like something had to go in order for it not to be too difficult for them to distribute it. But we didn't get Samuel Goldwyn on board until about midway. And a friend of mine who I got to know, who really helped me move this thing along, even though he never got me a deal at Miramax, Mark Tusk, maybe some of you might know him. He was acquisition director there for many years, and he loved Wigstock. So he got me a meeting with Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey Weinstein saw that it was like, Paris is Burning light. He had released Paris is Burning, but basically he tried to, be really cheap, and he tried to get this movie I'd already spent a fortune on for nothing, and I didn't feel comfortable that it was going to get done. And but Mark, meanwhile, introduced me to Pedro Almodovar. He said, if we can get Pedro on board and as an executive producer, Harvey will definitely give you the money. So we faxed Pedro at his hotel in New York. It went into his room, and because we had read some article that he had been to Wigstock and loved it. And we ended up meeting with him, and I showed him the footage, and he said, this film must be made. Are you going to the Cannes Film Festival? I want you to come and meet my brother, and we'll talk to financiers. And I thought that was going to be it. It was going to be done. I didn't even have money to get on an airplane to go to Cannes, but I found some more, borrowed, stole, whatever it was, went to the Cannes Film Festival, met with Pedro and his brother, and we were going to get the money from their people in Spain and Canal Plus, and it just never happened. It dragged on for like 6 months. I had nothing but a huge phone bill. But what happened, which was very interesting, was that I was seen hanging out with this guy from Miramax and Pedro Almodovar and Kathy Schulman, who I invited tonight. Is she here? I don't think she is, because she couldn't make it. She was working at Goldwyn at the time, and she got jealous. Which is what enables you to get a movie finished. Somebody going, I don't want them to do it, I want to do it. So you almost have to have 2 deals to get one to close. And after that, she came on really strong and said, Barry, I want you to show this to Sam. And I'll never forget coming back here and showing like drag queens dancing to Sam Goldwyn, and he was like, oh, okay. How much do you need for the music? So the music, as you can imagine, was a huge part of the budget. It was $350,000. And that was a feat.
What was the most expensive song?
Joey Arias's Billie
Really?
Holiday
Really?
song.
You think that would be like public domain by now.
No, some of those old classics are owned by some relative of some of the original writer.
That's got to be
And
1930.
they're like living on the residuals their whole life, you know, so they don't care about art or having the song heard. And we did everything to woo this woman. She had some townhouse on Fifth Avenue, but she wanted a lot of money, and we finally scraped it together because Joey's performance is so great, because that ocean liner went by just at the right moment. You know, there were all kinds of reasons that we just couldn't cut it. But one song, it was about $35,000.
Wow.
You know.
Age of Aquarius, was that a lot?
What's that?
Age of Aquarius, was that?
That was, you know, not cheap either, but that was Their Eyes was the most expensive.
But you wanted it to be musical, so you were ready, and you ended up getting to have a soundtrack too.
Also, Leigh Bowery was originally singing "All We Need Is Love." Da, 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 da. All you need is love. And then he had the baby. So he had to come up with a song and re-record it. Also, Taboo re-recorded his song.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see the lips aren't moving completely in sync, even if they're really good lip syncers, and that's because we had to dub the song.
Taboo's song was
because we couldn't get the rights.
Let the boys be boys. Slam.
Exactly. Good memory. But with Leigh Bowery, and also Leigh Bowery was in the hospital when we were editing. He died before he ever got to see the movie. But what worked out for his song was we had a composer rewrite a song that somehow fit. Well, he was wearing that bizarre mask, so it was really easy to hide his lips. But, you know, we didn't want to buy a Beatles song for that short. I mean, the amazing performance was The Birth of the Baby.
Right.
So a guy in the East Village who was from England, who had a beautiful voice, was recommended to me by Floyd, and it turned out to be Anthony, who went on to become Anthony and the Johnsons.
Really?
And that's who's dubbing Leigh Bowery.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of... Lip Synca, of course, was the most challenging set of clearances. There were like 12 different sets of rights for that one performance.
And you had to re-record a woman's actress's voice who sounded like Faye Dunaway from Mommy Dearest.
Paramount Pictures gave us the right to the script of Mommy Dearest, but they said you're not allowed to use Faye Dunaway's voice.
I think Faye said no. Actually, no.
No, I think they were afraid that Faye would get angry because Faye thinks that movie ruined her career, even though some think it's, you know, a classic. But they didn't want to have a problem with her. So.
Well, it kind of touches on the major thing that people are always kind of like feminists, and you know, a lot of people have issues with drag, and you know, people juggle the ideas of it. There you go. And you know, the idea that we're lampooning or paying homage to women, it can be both. It also can be making fun of the fact that, you know, that men and women are more alike than they are different. They just recently discovered that there is no man and woman brain. They're just brains. Guess what, people? They're just brains. So, I mean, the idea that people could enjoy glamour without, you know, being called being like that we're supporting sexualization of women, or, you know, at the same time, and then, you know, you make mention, and there's a shot in the movie where somebody says, you know, it's not about this and about that, and then you cut to like a really gratuitous shot of like, you know, lady miscarries butt. So it's like we're kind of like, you know, we don't want to the media and the you know, the things that are accepted in society that are people find, you know, offensive, like 13-year-old girls with like their lips getting plumped up and trying to look like women and wearing too much makeup and these ideas. But then like we can enjoy that. So it's kind of like this sort of balance. It's like where, you know, at what point is it's like, you know, a lot of issues, you know, everyone has their own opinion on it. But, you know, I feel that drag is not offensive towards women in general. And I don't think it's making fun of women, but I could see how that could be people could be like, what are you saying? You know, we're saying that it's funny to be a woman. It was like, well, no, a wig is not a woman. You know, that's really, I think, the point.
Wigstock it's like embracing a larger idea of what, just the idea of gender performance in general, right? It's just sort of.
But for some people,
it
is very important to, gender is like a big deal, and there are some people that and myself, I could say I've gone through some gender stuff, and sometimes it's like identity is really important, and for some people, a wig means leaving the house or not. So it's like. It can be fun and frivolous, but it's also, there's some real issues going on,
But for a festival like this, and the fact that so many people in the audience come in wigs, and just my coming up here and putting this thing on, it just loosens you up. It's like a drug, It's like having a drink, putting a wig on.
Sure.
But the point is, we obviously are paying some kind of homage to the movie Woodstock and the festival Woodstock, and of course Wigstock. If I had gone the route of doing a historical thread behind the music, you would have learned that Wigstock started as a joke where Lady Bunny and a bunch of her friends who were performing at the Pyramid Club in the East Village
jumped up on like a band shell or something. Yeah,
in the park, at 4 or 5 in the morning after the clubs closed, and they were too, high and buzzed to go home and go to sleep, so they started performing, and one of them started pretending she was Janis Joplin, and somebody else started pretending they were Joni Mitchell, and they were like, "Hey, we should do this."
Yeah.
And then they did it. And 100 people showed up, and we have Tom Rubnitz to thank, was a friend and
that was in
another sad casualty of the AIDS epidemic. But he made the short of Wigstock in 1987,
which was the third year, right?
Third
so
year,
very early, yeah.
Yeah, and it was shot on video. It was shot cheaply with one camera, but it had a lot of flair. I used some of the images in the opening credit sequence, then turned them black and white just to give it a sense of period versus the present. But, I'm grateful to him for making that. Anyway, should we open it up to some questions?
That's right where I was headed. And we have people who will be in the aisles with microphones. So if you have a question, then wait for the mic, please.
Oh, I did want to say one more thing about the music. So since the music was so expensive, and when I met with all the performers before I filmed them. I said, I don't want to tell you what to do, but if you try to choose something in the public domain or something that's original, that some talented young person wrote, but if you're committed to some famous song, we'll try our best. And I did have a producer on the film named Dean Silvers, and who is a lawyer and a great music supervisor, Jerry Gershman. And they spent, and with my help, over a year doing nothing but clearing music rights.
Wow.
And then when we saw what it was the price tag, and Harvey Weinstein wasn't forking over the money so quickly, we thought, well, maybe we can get an album deal. So Jerry helped us. We got an album deal with Sire Records, and I think it's still out there as a cult album on Amazon if anybody wants a copy. And the album helped us pay for the soundtrack, basically.
Okay.
And we had to force a few more of their artists into the movie. Like over the credits, you'll hear an Erasure song and some other song. A few artists that aren't even in the movie, I stuck them in various places so that we could get this album deal. But it really helped cover a lot of that.
Wow, interesting. Questions from you guys? Yep, right back there. Can you wait for the mic? Sorry.
Yeah, I have a few questions. There's probably so much great footage that didn't make the film. It would be great to see it sometime. I'm just wondering, how many hours did you actually film before cutting it? And is Wigstock still going on? And if it's not, when and why did it end?
I'll answer your second question first. Wigstock is not going on anymore.
Yeah, they're
Oh yeah,
It's a
very
thing.
good. Look, the brand exists. Lady Bunny and her partner Scott Lifshitz, own the name Wigstock, and we made a deal with them to use the name because I loved it. I didn't want to call the movie anything else. But she does do cruises that are called Wigstock. But basically, I will say this for Bunny, as bawdy and nutty and just, a lowly sense of humor she has, she's really got high standards when it comes to putting on this festival. She wanted it to be free. She didn't want it wasn't about charging people a ticket price. It was almost just too big to be doing that. But also it was the spirit of Woodstock, where there were too many people and they broke down the fences, and, she wanted it to be free. So she had to do fundraisers all year to get the porta-sands and the speaker system.
It's a huge technical undertaking by the time you made the film.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I think they wanted to make the film, is not only to be immortalized on the screen, but they needed the money that I had raised to pay them to license the name Wigstock. It helped them pay for the festival those 2 years. But she just wore out, and was more interested in developing her career as Lady Bunny and performing. And then, Wigstock but it was like she was doing the job of 12 people, and
She wasn't getting the paycheck. That's what.
yeah. Many good things come to an end. So, but it's inspired other Wigstocks around the world. There's been a Wigstock in Berlin. There was a West Coast one, I think, in San Francisco one year. Does anyone else know?
And then his other question was, how much did you actually shoot?
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I had 4 cameras going during the festival, and I shot 2 different years. So that's load 8 cameras with film, and the festival went on from about noon until 10 at night. And I tried to film every second of it. So what's that ratio? I mean, I'm sure it was at least, what? 80. Yeah, probably 80 hours. That's probably what I had. And especially when you're filming musical numbers where you don't own the music, I knew that I needed extra in case I didn't get the rights to something. I needed to have a second choice. And
then how much of the interviews of people getting ready and
well, the interview,
Alexis on the
all
street
that
stuff?
was more controlled because I had already edited a lot of the musical stuff, and I knew I wanted to add. I think I shot some of that while I was filming the concert. You'll notice some of it looks like video, and it was. The rest of the film was shot on 16 millimeter, Super 16, and we blew it up to 35 for the theatrical release. But the video stuff I had a camera roaming the crowd, and most of that was video, like that one queen with the sunglasses who goes, "I know you want to put a wig on," but it gives it some texture. I like mixing video with film. But I did want the film itself to have kind of more of a gloss, because a lot of people had been shooting, handheld video over the years that didn't look that good, except for Tom Rubnitz's piece had style. But I wanted it to have a little gloss.
Looks great.
I remember thinking I wanted to put the drag queens in the shopping malls of America, and it happened.
Wow, amazing.
Now, 20 years later,
It's very popular now.
it's very popular, isn't it?
There is television shows about it, in fact.
Sure. I
Yeah.
mean, no comment.
Other questions?
We're still misrepresented, but hey, it's all good. We're still clowns
Back there.
and killers, but yay.
Baby steps.
Oh, okay.
I can't exactly remember the timing, but was there any influence here from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
Who's asking this question?
In the very back.
Oh, yes. Well, the best influence, Priscilla got made and released before Wigstock got released. I started Wigstock before I had ever seen Priscilla, but it was Priscilla that helped close the deal for theatrical distribution. The fact that that was a success. You know, other films have, you know, some film made in Australia that you had nothing to do with is affecting whether your film gets released or not. So I have that film to thank. But
Well,
I hadn't seen it.
They
until-
actually, when I was in Sydney one year, I'd been working in New Zealand, and I did a film in New Zealand, and it got a film festival in Sydney. We went to Sydney, and I went to some gay bars, and I did some drag, and I was wearing these diamonds, like a strip of diamonds, which was like new at the time. These diamonds that you could like lash on, and I was wearing them at a nightclub. And these two women came up to me, and they were like, "Wow, can we just see your makeup?" And they checked it out, and they were like, "I was like, who are you girls?" And they're like, "Well, we're actually working on a movie called Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and we love your makeup. We'd love to know where did you get those?" And I was like, "Well, I got them in America, but you know." And then I was like, "What? Priscilla, Queen of the Desert." And then the next thing I knew was this film, and I was like, that damn Guy Ritchie, I could have played that role. And I was there at the time, I could have auditioned. I did take the guy home who owns Priscilla, the actual bus, on the trip before. He goes, "Yeah, well, anyway, that's a long story, but I took the guy home, and he was like, 'Yeah, I'm working on that movie as well, Priscilla. Yeah, that's my blah, blah, blah. That's my, what do they call it? Lorry. That's my lorry.
yeah.
That's Silver Lorry.'" I was like, "Wow, it's an interesting story, you know. Tell me more information about this film." But anyway, I never got my foot in the door. Sometimes it's the extra mile. I got to New Zealand by hearing about a script and just sending an audition tape. So sometimes you gotta like go the extra mile, and you get the trip to Sydney and not get the job in Priscilla.
Other questions?
Any other
Right there.
question?
I love the movie. Alexis, what performance would you have done if you would have done one? And where's Mistress Formica now?
Mistress is running a club in New York City called different clubs that he does. He's more boy now, most of the time, although it's sort of like a fetishy look. But he does the F Word. He does a number of other huge nightclubs. They're like multi-leveled. And he's like an impresario now, big time. So, and if I would have performed at Wigstock, at that time I would sing live, and I would do parodies like Jackie, change lyrics. I'm not sure what I would have done, probably. Not sure about that.
Right here in the middle.
Good question.
Maybe you can come back to it.
Alexis
Yeah.
has a beautiful singing voice.
Well, thank you.
You probably would have sung live.
I definitely
Jackie Beat's song was
That's
dubbed.
right. Jackie Beats was originally in the film, also dubbed, was the theme song to Facts of Life. You take the good, you take the bad, there you gotta give them Facts of Life. Facts of Life. And of course that was unaffordable. So she changed it to Kiss My Ass.
Kiss My Ass. And we used the angle where you can't see her
Right,
lips
right.
as perfectly.
But she still uses the phrase, "When the world doesn't seem to believe up to your dreams," which is from Facts of Life.
Yeah.
We have another question right here.
Hiya. Could you talk a bit about whether there was like much social interaction between the two scenes, like between the scene that was around Paris is Burning and the scene that was around Wigstock? Like, were the scenes influencing each other?
Yeah, there was. As a matter of fact, I noticed tonight when I was watching some of the cutaways, Willie Ninja was there. And there's a close-up of him in the film. I think maybe I might have filmed him on stage too. He
got a credit for, I think, choreography.
Oh, did he?
For the Wigstock dancers, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a
oh.
Willie Ninja credit.
So, there's one connection. I think that there was some mixing of uptown, downtown, absolutely. But
Yeah,
that's
the house scene, the houses of New York,
Yeah.
and the outer boroughs, it's kind of a different energy than East Village, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The East Village is a different energy than the West Village, but this was kind of like, everybody come, it's okay, we're not gonna, I mean, when I was living in New York, kids were working in Midtown at like clubs like Club USA, people like, the infamous Party Monster himself, and people like that were kind of getting paid by Peter Gatien and stuff like that to do these big budget things. And, we stayed down in the East Village and did our thing down there. And we wouldn't have thought to go up to those clubs because it was just like, it was like, but the cool thing about Wigstock is everyone would come together.
I think from maybe, some performers from Harlem might have come down to Wigstock,
Absolutely.
but it didn't go the other way around necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Back.
I mean, a lot of the performers from Wigstock are from other places. New York becomes the kind of
Meeting point.
the meeting point for everyone to run away from their small town or run away from their other country or whatever. Whereas I think that the scene in Paris is Burning was very indigenous to that neighborhood. Yes.
Back.
Hi, thank you so much for making Wigstock. I, as a teenager, used to rent it on videotape and watch it over and over again. I think I've watched Wigstock 100 times.
Oh my God.
Um,
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I haven't seen it in a few years, but I'm a trans woman, and I really appreciate the sort of trans women who are on the periphery of Wigstock, Chloe Zabilo, Van Barnes, and they both kind of talk about, their own journeys, and it sounds different than the drag queens who are being interviewed. What does it look like to you in context of 20 years later? Because, now we've kind of like reached a point where we've parsed out, all these sort of divisions in the trans community between queens and trans women, etc. Like, how do you? What do
All
you
the
guys-
microcosms of the trans world.
Well, let me start, and then I'll turn it over to you. Certainly, a lot's happened in 20 years. I mean, for RuPaul to say it's hip to be gay in the 90s, it was almost shocking when she said that. It was like, oh my God, it is. It was the reaction to AIDS. The gay community pulled together and just became stronger, in the face of all the tragedy. But there are certain, like Candace Cain, I would say is not a drag queen. And maybe you see in this movie the
beginning of her transition and her discovery.
So, there's a spectrum of some people are drag queens totally in performance. I think Taboo talked about it. He goes, it's like I get into drag to do a gig. He sees it like Milton Berle used to do drag,
And his friend sitting with him was very upset by the whole passing idea and all that. And I totally agree with her about that, It's like to pass as a trans
like
person.
you're trying to
like pass
be
yourself
something
as to
else
pass
rather
it.
than be yourself.
Well, and it's, I mean, there are people that are pushing the borders and the boundaries. And there have even been people that will call them like, oh, they're all set up. They're set up to fall, like people like Conchita Wurst, people who are bearded trans people, and they're trying to like say, okay, well, this is almost like let's push the perversion side and the freak show side, and like let's see if people's boundaries, how comfortable we can make people uncomfortable. I mean, there's people that have equated her to the Illuminati, and like she's a big setup. Or people have said the same thing about Caitlyn Jenner, that she's like, in some way going to debase this movement, and this like there's some sort of political agenda. And this is a personal thing for a lot of people, and I think gender and identity is pretty much personal for everybody. You know what I mean? It's like you could either be happy with the way your parents raised you or unhappy with it, or maybe you want to juggle it. Maybe you want to be something different every day. And there are some people that identify with not even our own species. And I can't tell those people that they're wrong. I really can't anymore. You know, I think as I would like to see people act more like humans, and then I don't care how they present themselves, and then I'll accept everyone. You know, until then it's kind of hard to make sense of it, really.
But clearly, drag queens have also been at the forefront of gay rights, and were very important at Stonewall. And, you know, it's just such a spectrum. I mean, some people want to live in a different gender than they were born, and
for some
others
people, they
have
do.
absolutely
Some
no
people
desire.
do want to burn every picture of their childhood, you know, and go the other way, and then that's their right too, you know. Honestly.
And how about you? Can I ask
How
you?
about me?
Do you want to burn your
around.
Do you want to burn your childhood pictures?
Nah, I'm okay with that.
You
I'm
are.
like, fine. And I'm also, I do consider myself a trans person, a gendered person, but I'm not somebody who's opted for any surgeries. But for a lot of people, that's very important. And, you know, hormone replacement and you know, that is tied in with a lot of people's like, ooh, does it really matter that you have boobies? And it's like, do I have to feel ashamed that I want to look more female if I want to be a female? Like immediately, like you get jumped on by like Nazi feminists who are like, oh, hold on, you know, and it's okay. I think it's all okay. And that's what we're trying to show here at Wigstock. Like you can, you know, tuck or untuck. Don't worry.
But I mean, look, there's quite a history, and I'm looking at my friend Jillian Cameron here in the second row, who's an expert in trans spiritual history. You know, and in many cultures, being, you know, double-sexed was a sign of, you know, something holy and magical, you know.
Look at peacocks, for crying out loud. I mean, yes, the females get to choose, but they're brown and they're sort of squat, and they sit in a corner and they sort of judge. And, he ain't pretty enough for me. Come on, he can't make babies. You know, so, I mean, listen, this country was founded by men in wigs. Let's get real. Let's get real.
That's it.
Jesus wore a gown. And his last words were, Mary, these spikes are killing me. No. Stop it.
I think we have time for how many are we? What's
One more, two more.
one more? I think.
I got one right up front. Right
Oh,
here
here we go. Hello. Wait, can you get them?
Can you make the film available on DVD? I mean, so many things go straight to release. You could have a huge amount of people that would want to buy this to have in their home collection.
Oh, it's
It
been
is on
out on
DVD.
DVD for 20 years. I mean,
Well-
2019.
It's so available at
Go to
Amoeba.
Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amoeba.
it's now, I'm happy to report, I think, except they haven't been too great on the residuals, but it's a nice brand. The film is now owned by MGM, so it's an MGM musical. And
Finally. I didn't even get to sing.
it's been put out by MGM 3 or 4 times on DVD. So
Do you know if
it's
there's plan for a Blu-ray?
I don't, actually.
Was there anybody else I want to ask before we
I
wrap
hope.
this up?
I would hope. Maybe
Yeah.
this is going to help.
Way back
thanks
there
to
in the
you.
back.
Hey,
sir.
hey, MGM.
Now we get the legs working.
Anyone
on.
You
from
took over.
MGM
Alexis
here?
has taken over the Q&A.
Cheer, right there, right in front of you.
Do you think that it'll ever become a Broadway show?
Oh, it's a good question because
Worse things have, you know.
No. A lot of people, I've been thinking about it for years, and I've had people even write some checks to try to make it happen, but it hasn't been
Almodovar?
enough. What?
Did Almodovar
himself?
write a check?
No.
He is a musical now, doesn't
I
he?
wish. What?
Doesn't he have a Broadway musical now?
Does
One of his
he?
movies, I think. I don't know. Who knows? They're all.
It's a perfect concept for a musical.
Write one and
Lady
we'll do
Bunny
it.
would like to do it. I would like to do it. It's just an enormous job. Not only does the story have to be written, and I think the key to the story is just what I said about New York being an incredible place that welcomes everyone that's maybe not welcome in their hometown. You know, like you come there, you know,
Well, I hope
Yeah.
that's still true.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Unfortunately,
You can get there,
it's
but
not
you can't
anymore.
afford to live there anymore.
No,
Yeah.
it was true in the 90s and the
Yeah.
80s. That's the thing. But that could be the essence of the musical. And there could be songs written, there could be songs licensed. But it may happen. And it may very well happen with my participation.
Planting seeds for the future of Wigstock
Yes.
the movie. Well, thank you both so much for
My
being
pleasure.
here.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Happy
coming, you
20th
guys.
anniversary.
Thanks for coming,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks everyone
Awesome.
for sticking around.